Well, I think we need to understand that we are engaged in a negotiation at the moment. And there can be two possible outcomes. One is that there is an agreement for the future relationship of Gibraltar with the European Union, which is what we would like and what we are working constructively towards. And the other one is that there may not be an agreement because we simply are unable to come to terms on the different issues which may separate the sides. So we've always said very clearly that Gibraltar is preparing from the beginning for both, for a negotiated outcome and also for a non-negotiated outcome. But that in the event of the latter, it will not mean going back to the world that we knew before or even staying as we are. We would then be a third country with the full consequences of what that would mean. Our life, sadly, will be very different. The government has been working hard to mitigate in many of these areas. There are some where the position now is far better than the position was in 2016 when the referendum took place, or even in 2020 when we formally left the European Union. In some, there has been effective mitigation in place, and we've looked at different solutions using the avenues of international conventions, of other agreements, to replace a framework provided by European Union law. But in some areas, it would simply not be possible to mitigate, and the consequences are simply what the consequences are when you're not a member of the European Union anymore.
I know that the government's not keen to talk about what's happening in the negotiations while the negotiations are taking place, but the Spanish press today talks of several stumbling blocks: frontier controls and visas, the application of EU legislation, tax harmonisation, I think that means as in VAT and such taxes, and the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. The reports actually seem to indicate that the negotiations have slowed down.
Well, first of all, let me say that when the European Union published their mandate, the approved mandate, I think it was a draft in July, and then the approved one came out, was published, already approved in October. When that happened, the government, both the Gibraltar government and the UK government, made it very clear that it contained elements with which we were profoundly dissatisfied, with which we did not agree, and which were simply not going to happen if that is what the formal position of the European Union was going to be. There have since been 4 negotiating rounds have taken place in London and in Brussels alternately. The last one was in London in December. There is one programmed for January in Brussels. And if the position had been, after 4 negotiating rounds and after exchanges of positions between the two sides, that there was simply going to be no scope whatsoever for an agreement, then it's possible that there would not have, the two sides would have been, look, thank you very much, we've spoken, we've tried to negotiate, we haven't been able to come to terms, and now we terminate the talks. The talks have not terminated. The talks are actually continuing. As I said, we expect them to carry on in January. All sides have given very positive comments in terms of expecting a final solution, not in terms of the treaty text, but in terms of an agreement emerging before Easter. So that is the positive and constructive road on which we are working at the moment. Now, as the government has said on many occasions, at the same time, we also have to prepare for the eventuality of no agreement. But we are working constructively towards an agreement based on the political framework agreed with Spain at the end of December 2020.
You say it's all time-consuming, but how much do you feel this perfect storm of Brexit, COVID and now the treaty has influenced your ability to stay popular? Because, of course, a government that loses popularity becomes ineffective.
Well, remember the role of this government, and indeed of any government, in relation to a pandemic, first of all, is to protect life and to protect its people, to make sure the health services are not overwhelmed. So considerable resources, time and effort has gone into that. The work has been intense. It's been across government, and we are conscious of the fact that there may be people who are waiting, for example, for meetings with the government, who are waiting for issues to be resolved, and the issues may not have been seen to precisely because the government, the political government, the Chief Minister, myself, the administration have been involved intensively, first of all, in work in relating to the COVID pandemic, which essentially means saving life and protecting the health services, and secondly, in work relating to our departure from the European Union. But that does not mean, conversely, that, well, this is not important. It's extremely important because it will have an impact on every single Gibraltarian and every single person who lives in Gibraltar. So we have to get that right.
Well, many of us were very glad to see 2021 go. How optimistic are you for 2022?
Well, first of all, look, there are a number of positives coming through in the year. In terms of what the government has been doing, we are continuing with our school building program. It's something without precedent in the history of Gibraltar. We've announced already the continuation of the construction of flats, of affordable homes as well. We're looking forward to other projects, the East Side, the Bayside project, our own work at the Mount and the Northern Defences to create open areas for the people of Gibraltar to enjoy. In all that, and parallel to all that, we have the work in relation to the pandemic, which continues with new variants, with vaccination programs. We're very grateful to everybody who's been involved in all that work, as we are with everybody involved in the work with relations to our departure from the European Union and now the negotiation of a future relationship with the European Union. There have been two very, very intense work streams, and I'm sure that we'll be able to see them to a successful conclusion.